I don't think I could do it justice. But I do remember as a kid learning about the Tom Fogarty, the inventor of the Fogarty catheter. And over time, as I started making more medical products, I started getting an ever deeper appreciation of all the people that have made things that we all take for granted seem so simple. Anybody in this room that's actually put a product out knows there's no such thing as simple. And it's getting a lot harder these days to get new products out for a couple of reasons. All the easy stuff has been done. And the environment is not nearly as welcoming to people that are trying to do new and different things. We spoke about that this afternoon. For various reasons that I think are unhealthy and have to change, I think the general public has come to believe they somehow deserve good quality of health care, ever better. I mean, people that are 70, 80, 90 years old want to go in and get that hip replaced so they can continue to play tennis. I mean, people are not going to age gracefully. People want to stay young forever. That's a noble goal. But at the same time, people expect more and more from our medical system, and as the whole population is aging, somehow people are also believing that all of this stuff should happen. And unlike in the past, when people were, I think, somewhat more realistic, people now believe medical care should essentially be free. I don't know of any other really valuable thing we all aspire to have that we expect is somehow free. But what makes it worse than it should be free is it also should be at zero risk. It's astounding. But medical advances aren't going to be risk-free. And anybody that wants to live with that delusion is going to be disappointed. But a consequence, I think, of a population that is becoming more and more risk-averse, where everybody has become a professional victim or somebody who feels like we're all entitled, is going to find, when they look around the rest of the world, that America's losing it. Innovation around the rest of the world is going nuts, and governments around the world are enthusiastic to embrace new and better technologies. We are, maybe it's just the process in countries as it is in people. As you get older, you get more conservative, and maybe our whole culture is just more and more risk-averse. But again, as we discussed this afternoon, for all sorts of reasons, that reasonable balance that I think used to exist between being willing to take reasonable risks to get extraordinary results is making it, A, harder to get devices out there quickly, which I think has some pretty disturbing consequences. A lot of young, smart people have decided it's way easier to go out and innovate in other fields where the results of what you do can be immediately brought to the marketplace. The trouble is, I can't think of any place where I'd rather have more innovators than in healthcare. I mean, one more new video game or app, great. We need innovation in healthcare. We need it to drive costs down. We need it to drive quality up. We need it because we've got an aging population. We need it for a lot of reasons. And we've got to embrace it with all of its sometimes unintended consequences. I think Tom Fogarty has lived a whole life of innovating, and I listened to him this afternoon, and I could sense in him the frustration that it used to be a little easier to do for a lot of different reasons. I don't think anybody has a simple answer to that. I looked at all the people that won some pretty spectacular awards today, and to all of you, congratulations. But it's not you that I'm really excited about or for. It's all the people that are going to benefit from what you did. But most of them will never understand the risk or the effort or the frustration that you took. Most of the general public is out now doing things that leave healthcare and all the difficulty of creating it to somebody else. And that's a problem. I said it this afternoon, I'll say it again. Until we collectively help educate the general public about the importance and the costs, both financial and human costs, of raising the bar, until the public really re-embraces the reasonable spirit, I think we run the risk of losing our edge in this environment as being the most innovative place on the planet. We have to educate the public. It's nice to say that's not our problem. We're not policy people, we're not politicians. But you're citizens. You have to help get real information to the public. Otherwise, public policy will be guided by the enormous amount of misinformation that's out there now. And a consequence of that is it will affect the ability to get new products into the field. It'll affect regulatory policy. It'll affect investment by people that are, let's say, less willing these days to invest in making medical products because there's so much uncertainty related to whether they'll get out to the people that need them. So I didn't want that to be a downer, but in a room full of incredibly innovative people, I would beg you all to take a little bit of your time and make sure you help convince the general public that innovators and industry are not the enemy. They need to embrace what you do and support it so that next year there'll be more great stuff being presented. And there'll be somebody else following in the kind of life achievements that Dr. Tom Fogarty has accomplished as a surgeon, as an inventor, as a tireless optimist for what you can do with innovation in healthcare. So Dr. Fogarty, I'm not sure who gets the bigger honor, you for getting the award or me for getting to give it to you. But is it now time to ask Dr. Fogarty to come get his award? Will you please come up here and get your award?
It's interesting. I want to just talk a little bit about innovation. You know, there's a lot of players in the field of innovation. One that we often forget, and probably the real hero of innovation in the medical device industry and drug industry, are our patients. Those are the ones who are willing to take a risk and allow us to evaluate new technology and new drugs in themselves. Those are the ones who are really committed to new technology. Now, they do it hopeful that what we do is going to be better than the standard things we do. And most of the time, they are correct, but not always. You know, unfortunately, the final test of any device is in the human. You can do all the animals you want, but sometimes no animal will replace the human mechanism or the human physiology. So I think we should always reflect on who has really helped our patients. You know, it's a conglomerate of people, but let's not forget the ones that mean the most and often have the most to lose, and that's our patients. A little story about when I started in this field. I think it was probably a year before most of you were born. It goes back quite some time. It actually goes back to the late 50s. And I was encouraged to do that because a physician who was my mentor, he had a difficult problem, and that was pulling clots out of arteries and veins. As a scrub technician, you got to see what worked and you got to see what didn't work. And one day he turned to me, "Hey, Tom, this doesn't work. Let's do it better, and I'll help you." So that was essentially a challenge. And he did help me. He helped me all the way along. We did everything the FDA currently makes us do, but not to the extent that they make us do it. You know, and all you had to do at that time, there was no medical device legislation. All you had to do was make the product, and who helped us make the products? It was engineers. There weren't any biomedical engineers at that time. There were machinists and there were mechanical engineers. And so what you needed was 3 people. The last one was a physician, and sometimes not even a physician, because when this occurred, I was not a physician. So I was a technician that handled instruments, and he had the opportunity to observe what didn't work and how could we make this work. So it's identifying needs, as we all know, is the impetus, first impetus. But over the years, I think when you talk about those who are important in the field of medical devices and drugs, it's bioengineers for drugs, and it's the engineers that develop essentially medical devices. Now, we call them different things relative to that particular objective, but they're all the same, and that is they're all focused and very enthusiastic about helping patients. They're a group that we love to work with, and they usually work together pretty well. And I think when you talk about the current technology, it's rarely developed by one person. It's developed by a team. And that team includes a physician, an engineer, and many other people. It includes the marketing and sales people relative to getting devices in the marketplace. Certainly, industry is an important colleague. You know, if we can build the best instruments in the world, but if there's nobody to promote and to sell these instruments, it's done no good whatsoever. And they should not be punished for that effort. They're going to make mistakes sometimes, and like physicians, we make mistakes. I don't want to discourage anybody, because I'm sure for many of you, you enjoy what you're doing. For me, it has been such a pleasure to work in this environment with an effort by everybody in the environment to make our patients better. So you people in this audience become more and more important in the process of taking care of patients, and I certainly appreciate that, and many patients do.